Hey, welcome to another Valley Forged. Today we're once again talking about the longer laser B1 30 watt. And I think I put in the title that is the best laser under $1,000. And I have good reason for saying that. And I think I'm not the only one spouting how good this thing is. It does have its issues and we're gonna go over those, but those issues aside, performance-wise, it is absolutely amazing and very dependable. And as I've told you guys, you know, I had the longer B5 20 watt and I just loved it. And it was my production machine. And this one also has become one of my production machines, this one and the 36 watt that I have from Acer. So between those two, they both have their strengths and weaknesses. But when it comes to price, I don't think this can be beat. So if you want to spend a little time getting it dialed in, if you will, it's going to really be rewarding. So I would first off say, this is not for everyone. You know, if you are going to do, as you'll see in the videos, similar things to what I'm doing, then it will totally make sense for you to use this laser. I mean, it is a beast. I'll play a little bit of video of it running. With the modifications, it's actually really fun to watch. There are a few things that I would change. You know, I did a video, my first impressions already of this, and a lot of those are going to remain true. I guess when you've done reviews and looked at as many lasers as I have, pretty soon you pretty much get it, you know, almost right off the bat of what things are going to work and what things aren't. And also, I like to keep tabs on other people's videos. And I think, like, I'll have a link in the description for this and the 20 watt, the older one. But I also encourage that you watch other people's videos like Clack Shack or Vintauri, which I'm going to mention in a bit. I also mentioned another video on putting it together in the last video. So I mean, watching other people's videos is going to be very helpful. And one of the things is that we come a lot to the same conclusions. But I'm going to show you, you know, the things that I do on, you know, for work, for business, and show you how it works for me. And as you can already see these crosses, now I usually have been doing them with a 36 watt laser. Reason being, I can't afford for these things not to work. Right? I used to, when I do these on a 10 watt laser, and it takes 3 passes. And you can't do one this small. And that's one of the very interesting things. You'll see in the video, the cleanliness that it does this is just beyond any of the other ones that I've tested. It's when you get to, I know it doesn't look that small, but if you look at the detail here with all of these little letters, if it doesn't cut them out perfectly, you're in big trouble. Second of all, the heat generated for these. When these letters are so close together, a lot of times what it'll do is burn the wood in between, and so it'll destroy the letters. So you can't really do them too small. This was a big leap forward, and I really appreciated that. And it gave me the confidence to make the larger ones, because what happens, you know, this is a $12 piece of wood. Now, if it doesn't cut it out perfectly, you just lost a $12 piece of wood and your time and your patience. So, you know, this is sapel, I believe it's called, and this is walnut. It's not cheap, you know, although it's 1/8 inch, this is probably, I think it looks the best in an 1/8 inch. You know, it fits right up against the wall, looks great. My mom wanted one instantly. I mean, they look really nice. But if your machine, like I was doing with the 10 watt, you know, does it most of the time, that's not good enough. You need something that you know when you put that piece of wood in a laser, it's gonna come out looking like this. And that's one thing I really appreciate with this 30 watt. I am gonna show you the testing, but first of all, I wanted to show you, and some of the other channels have mentioned this as well, and this is why I mentioned Vintauri, I believe is his channel, and I will put a link to his video to give him props for what he did here. Clack Shack also has modified his, and that would be the air. Now, if any of you have seen my video on the Ortur Laser Master 3, I made something like this that went along the side of the module and shot the air directly in. It worked 100 times better than what came with it, and it didn't get the lens dirty, and that was huge. So I thought I would just do that with this laser. But after seeing Clack Shack, and he mentions Vintauri's, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I just want to get this video done. I will have it right by the next video. But his solution here was just brilliant. So what he did is he just put some painter's tape over this and then shot the laser through it. And it makes a tiny little hole right where the laser is. I was thinking, how do I get this really tight and still not block the laser? Now you'll see in the video, this works so perfectly, and you could see the stream of the laser coming down through it with the air, and I think it just looks brilliant, and I love it. Of course, I took off the cover because I want to see where this laser is going. So as I mentioned in the last video, I'm just not a big fan of these solid covers. If it was solid acrylic colored, like an orange or something, I'm down with it. But the way that this is done, it's mostly blocking your vision. So I took it off. I recognize a lot of the other channels also took it off. I don't know why laser companies don't just see that we do this and not do it again. I don't know. I don't know why. They obviously want our reviews, and I would appreciate if they'd pay attention to them. It looks like some companies have, and you know, I'm going to tell you the things that I don't like. I mean, as much as I work with the companies that I want to work with. So like and subscribe if you want some honest reviews on what's going on with lasers and just the different kinds of things you can do. But I pretty much work right now with Longer and Acer because that's the companies that I want to work with. Those are the lasers that I want to use. Will that change in the future? Maybe. But as of right now, even with its faults, this is one of the best lasers out there, and certainly I believe the best for under $1,000. So with that quick little modification, it completely changes your smoke profile. It cut fine even when the air isn't working optimally, but it was leaving a little kind of smoky edge that was, it's kind of a pain because then you've got to sand it off. And if you're talking about, you know, plywood, these things aren't that thick. Well, you start accidentally hitting the edges too much and you're going to ruin your projects. So this solution has worked wonderfully for me. Will I find a more permanent solution? Maybe. Will I use a piece of like aluminum tape or something? I don't know. I may go with something else in the future, but this is working so well. There's really no need. I mean, the bottom line is getting to work, right? So what modifications did I make to this laser? Obviously, I took off this cover. I put the piece of tape on here, and I think that's about it, and it's just ready to go. So it's really not that much. Now let's get into the cutting, okay? Once I've modified the machine, didn't take very long at all, it's ready to go, right? So I'm cutting this one. I'm super impressed with how clean it comes out. I go ahead and I make some larger ones, which came out great. Other modification I made, I did cover up with duct tape, and I do this for all of the lasers I get, is the flame sensor. Now you may think, oh, well, if you put tape on here and now you covered up the flame sensor, you shouldn't do it. But for me, probably just hit the mic. For me, it's a no-brainer. I have had projects ruined with different lasers by that flame sensor. If just the sunlight, bounces off of something and hits that flame sensor, it will turn your project completely off and ruin it. That's not something I'm willing to take. I'm in the room the whole time while that laser's going. I got a heavily fire resistant enclosure. I'm not worried about it too much, and that thing will drive me crazy. So pay attention to that. If you're having your projects all of a sudden an alarm going off, that's the first thing to look at is that flame sensor going off. So end of rant on that. So getting to the testing. So I went ahead and did tests on this, of course, before I went through all of that. Oh, also wanted to mention, okay, so you do all this modification. Well, it had that little focus lever, which I didn't really like anyways. Now what do you do though? How do you focus this thing? Well, what I did was I measured the whole thing, including that little focus dial, with old school calipers. Now I have brand new ones, but I really felt like this was the way to do it. And all I did was use the laser to cut out that size. And I glued two of them together because I just wanted to do it quickly. And here it is. I could have just used an 1/8 inch like so, but I decided to go ahead and make this. It has worked great. I have no issues, and I just push it right below and use it as a normal focus. So into that, I know it's all over the place. I don't care. I mean, I'm teaching you, you're learning, hopefully, about a great laser. So first thing I did a little power test on 1/8 inch. And this was before, and this is after changing this. So you'll see there's just so much more smoke on the sides. It didn't really change how well it cut, maybe just a tiny bit. I think there's like one square that cut out more, but just the difference in the way that it looks and the cleanliness. You spend a lot more time post, and that makes a big difference. So I'm very happy with the way that came out. So then I went ahead and did the same test on the walnut, and that looked good. So then I went ahead and started making the crosses. So I guess as you could see here on 1/8 inch, hardwood, plywood here, still at 600 millimeters per minute at 100% power, it cut out. My threshold is really 300 for any material that I use. That's, if it doesn't consistently cut out at 300 millimeters per minute at 100% power, I usually don't go below that. I will go 2 passes. For some reason, that seems to be a sweet spot for me. Maybe 100 works out for you. I just feel like that overcooks the wood. For very specific things, I will use 200, 100, but for actual production, I find that 300 millimeters per minute is what I like to work at. So no problem on that. Obviously, it'll double that. I think I did these about 500 millimeters a minute just because I wanted to be sure. You don't want to have any, little hanging letters or anything. You want it to be clean. What I actually do is I run the shop vac over it when I'm finished. Just sucks out everything that it needs to be. Kind of leaves it clean, kind of like you dusted it with a compressor. And then you can just sand it and finish it. So here's some 1/8 inch walnut. Another thing that I like to work with. And this was from the 10-watt laser. And you can see it just doesn't do it. Now, yes, I could do 300 at 100 with 3 passes, and it would cut it out pretty well, but even then, there's still a little bit of splintering in the back. It just did an absolutely horrific job. And so that's why for me, a 10-watt laser isn't good enough. Now, There's other people who I respect, like Louisiana Hobby Guy, that do some amazing bitmaps or pictures or raster engraves. And for that, a lower power laser is probably better. But I don't do that. I do production of cutting out things mostly. I do engraving, but nothing that's fine enough to where it's not better to use a 30-watt laser. It's just speed. When I can go 50,000 millimeters per minute and get something done and it looks great, that's what I'm looking for. So this was just destroyed by a 10-watt laser. So having that 30 watts just makes an ultimate difference. And this is my speed test. Now below, I did this one a little different. I did the 200 millimeters per minute at 100% power all the way down. It cut through 200 millimeters per minute at 100% power all the way down to 60% power at 200. That is really nice. You're going to get all the way at 300 millimeters per minute. I got all the way down to 70% power. So I would probably run this at about 300 millimeters a minute at 90% power. And that's pretty sweet for that one. Or maybe 320 at 100% or something like that. But what I'm saying is it'll easily do this. And so I can consistently make objects, maybe even like these, with 1/4 inch. So being able to use 1/4 inch consistently at a decent speed to be able to make things, I think is really important. I'm not trying to cut 2x4s with a diode laser. I think this is kind of ridiculous. So why are you buying the laser is a really, really good thing to think about. If you're going to be doing highly detailed raster engraving, I would probably look for the Rolly Lasermatic or something like that. Maybe go check out Louisiana Hobby Guy and maybe try and figure out what is the best for that type of thing. But for doing just, trade shows, production, and just being able to do a wide variety of things, I don't think you can beat this laser for the price. I don't. Please leave in the comments. Is there something that you think can possibly keep up with this for less than $1,000? At this particular time, I just don't see anything. Now your next step up is probably going to be your 36 laser, or 36 watt Acer or Ikea. I think those are running about $300 more right now. They maybe have a lot of bells and whistles that you may or may not use. What I'm looking for is something consistent, something that I know when I turn that power on, it's going to cut it out. I'm not going to waste a piece of wood. I'm going to be able to sell that to a customer or give that to somebody as a present and be very, very satisfied with the quality. So in that, I will say, I love this. Okay, what are the things that I just can't stand about this laser? And there is something, it's the fan. And I mentioned that in my very first video. Here's one thing that the upgrade, the more expensive laser, the Ikea or Acer is going to have, and that is that it turns the fan off when it's not being used. It's such a small thing, but it's so huge. And please Longer, just get it done. Not only that, this is one of the most obnoxious fans you've ever heard in your life. It sounds like a jet engine. I think the Whizmaker is a little bit worse. I'll be honest. The Whizmaker is a little bit worse. This one isn't quite as jet engine, but it doesn't shut off. And that is annoying because it should. I mean, maybe it has to run a little bit longer to keep it cool, but that is something I hope that they work on. They've got it to where the air assist turns off when you don't want it, just right through light burn, which is, in my opinion, a huge upgrade. In my shop, I have my air outside because I want to keep it quiet in here. So I run all of my duct fans outside so that they're making noise out there, not in here. So the only thing I can hear when I'm running my laser is this fan. Now, it is so much quieter inside the enclosure than it is outside, but it's still annoying enough to where if I'm trying to do something on the computer, it's harder for me to listen. I don't want to hear it for more than a couple hours or else it's just going to annoy me. So if you're building your own enclosure, you want to make it soundproof and stuff, you won't even notice this. It is not super noticeable with the enclosure that I'm using, but it's still enough to be noticeable. So that is one thing you should take note of. And if you're really sensitive to sound like I am, then that's something to think about. But again, I mean, I don't know what else you're gonna buy unless you want to spend the extra $300-400. Now, this has a larger bed size. That's one of the things I really wanted to mention earlier. I just got all off on all these tangents. This has a larger bed size than most of those other ones as well. In fact, all of those other ones. This is 450 by 440. So right out of the box, you can't make this in a 36 watt Acer or IKEA. It won't fit. You won't be able to make it. It's too big. So that is one big benefit you get. Now you've got to, of course, buy a honeycomb bed that's going to also be able to fit this 450 by 440. So you're going to want to buy a 500 by 500 millimeter because the edges that don't count, I hope you get what I mean. It's like when they say it's 500 by 500, it's really like 460 by 460 or something. So make sure you get one that's big enough, but you can do some really nice size, work. And that does make a difference. Just having that extra little 40 or 50 millimeters. Now, I believe the P20 is 430 by 430 or something. So it's pretty close, but that's also a good laser. The P20 is also a great by Acer. But I don't even know if it's as cheap as this one. And this does have more power and a bigger bed size. So, wow, that really makes it difficult, doesn't it? What laser would I recommend for you today for $1,000? Every laser. And I'm gonna have to say, I think it would be this one at this point. I still have more testing to do. I wanna make sure it works great over time. But I think Longer has done another really, really great job. I have given them a couple of things to work on, and I really hope they do. They're not difficult things to fix. They're pretty basic, and I think most of us doing reviews are kind of looking at the same problems. I don't think a lot of people have mentioned the fan. Oh yes, Clack Shack mentioned the fan. His is in, a really solid enclosure, so he's not going to hear it like most people will. So think about that. But yeah, I think this is at this particular time, so see when this video is made, and do your own research. Look around. See, is there something that can handle this laser at this price and whatever price it is at the particular time. So I think that's I am going to make a ton more stuff with this laser. I really want to get back to making leather, and I think they'll do a great job. The air is not so important when it comes to doing leather. I really don't use it, so maybe I'll even take this thing off, but I would like to get back to making leather and having that speed to be able to do it quickly. I guess we'll see how it works out. So if there's anything else that you want me to test on this laser or things that you're curious about, please leave a comment, a like, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. And I will see you in the next one. Love y'all.